So I figured I would start out the series by kind of explaining the purpose of what I'm doing, the rig that I'm using, the rifle I'm using, what I'm trying to do, and we'll take it from there. So in this series that I'm starting, I'm looking for a precision load for this rifle. So first I'll talk about the rifle quickly. So I built it or assembled it from the ground up through parts. So really the heart and soul is the barrel. So it's a black hole weaponry, 18-inch SPR profile rifle length gas system barrel. So this barrel, I believe they go by a different name now. I think they merged with like Columbia Sports or something like that. So this barrel, really nice barrel. Really like it. Has been very accurate with various loads. So moving back, I have I believe it's a BCM stripped upper that I got for it. It has a MBT trigger from LaRue, which I'm a huge fan of. I have several of those in several of my AR platform rifles. Really excellent trigger. Seekins, I believe that's a 15-inch rail, key mod. Harris bipod. We got the Ergo grip. I'm a big fan of those as well. I put those in all of mine. Rock River Arms, A2 style buttstock. Nothing fancy there. Some Magpul backup sights. The K&S anti-rotation pins. And a Toolcraft bolt carrier. Big fan of that as well. BCM medium profile charging handle. AR Prepper 30 millimeter scope mount. An SWFA 10 power fixed scope, which I really like as well. And I think that's everything. I don't know if I said Harris bipod. So this style is, built off of the 18-inch, sort of a throwback to the military's SPR, special purpose rifle. Although it is absolutely not a clone. It's just built with that style in mind. I've done a few tweaks to it since the initial build, but really it's really stayed pretty much the same. I forgot to mention too, it's got just a standard rifle buffer, but I did put in one of the tubs flat wire buffer spring, which I really like. So anyways, that's the rundown. Made in SPR style, although it is definitely not meant to be a clone. It's just meant to be built in that style. So one of the things I've been working on here lately is I've been working on being able to mount this is the Magneto Speed, which I really like. This is the Sporter model. This is the cheaper model. I'm just not really a fan of strapping it to the barrel. When I do my workups for my reloading, what most people do is they'll just shoot the rounds over the sporter, get the velocity, and then they'll shoot for groups. When I have this mounted to the barrel, it definitely impacts both the point of impact and the group size. I've tested that several times, and although you can account for point of impact shift, you can't account for group size. And when you're working up a load, group size is a big part of that, and velocity is a big part of that. So you really have two options. You could, well, three. You could strap this to the barrel and just not worry about the groups, just take the velocity readings. Or you could shoot through a chronograph that's not mounted, or you can, or you mount it and you just shoot through it like normal, and you don't have to worry about that. So what I've been working on is trying to put this mount together here to where I can mount this so that it's fixed, but it also mounts into the key mod system down here as part of the rail. So it'd mount in a configuration like this, to where it's not touching the barrel in any way, but it is close enough to get readings, and you don't have to worry about the point of impact shift. So I've gone through a couple of different modifications on this mount, and I'll probably end up doing a separate video with that. But just so you know, when you see that mounted, it's pretty ugly. But if I get it to work, I'll paint it up and make it look nicer. And really I only need it on there as part of load development, so it's not something I plan on leaving on the rifle by any means. But I did want a way to mount it onto the rifle in such a way that I don't have to worry about impacting the barrel harmonics, and actually changing my point of impact. So anyways, you'll see that in some of the videos. Don't worry about that. So again, what is my goal? So like with any loading project, with any reloading project, you need to have a goal. You don't just grab powder, grab bullets, and start loading. Okay, you need to begin with the end in mind and think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. So the way I got into it was, after building this rifle, my previous ARs had been built with the purpose of either like home defense or more of like the military's M4 style, CQB kind of style, right? Once I got this, I kind of got bitten by the bug of, well, this is kind of cool. I can make some very precision shots at mid-range, nothing crazy long range. It is a 5.56, so once I got this, I started getting some various match grade factory ammo. And prior to building this, several years ago, I had only ever reloaded pistol calibers. And so I found a couple of rifle loads that I really liked. One I especially liked, that was made by the Outback brand, 69 grain Sierra Match King head, and it shot the best out of most of the match grade tests that I did. The only one that's shot better than that was the Federal Gold Medal Match, which shot just a little bit better. But the price, I mean, you could get the Outback 69 grain for like $12 to $13 a box at Cabela's. Well, Cabela stopped carrying the 69 grain, and I thought that was kind of weird. So I actually emailed the Outback company and said, what's going on? And they said, well, there was some kind of pricing disagreement with Cabela's. I guess Outback wanted to raise their prices. The price they were selling them at was like an introduction price to kind of test the market and see if people liked them. Well, people did like them, so they wanted to raise the price, and Cabela said no. And so they got in this big argument and whatever. So I checked around. There really wasn't, even buying them online, there really isn't another supplier that you can get them with here in the United States, because they actually are made in Australia. So I had a few boxes of it, and I said, well, maybe I can load something that's going to be close to the performance that I'm getting out of these Outback rounds. And I was getting anywhere, on a good day, I was getting 3/4 MOA. On a bad day, I was getting right around a minute. So, but again, it was for $13 a box, right? So then I said, well, I wonder what what bullet it's using. And it says right on the box, it's a 69 grain, Sierra Match King, hollow point boat tail, right? Very standard, not the tipped version, the standard version. So I knew I could buy those. I knew I could get the brass. I don't believe there's anything special about the brass. ADI, it was kind of average brass at best. So then I said, well, I wonder what powder they're using. So again, I emailed the company and I said, hey, what are you guys making for powder? And of course they couldn't tell me exactly what it was, but they gave me an approximation, right? They said, these are kind of similar powders in the industry, and one of them was Varget. So, I mean, you can't go anywhere or talk to anybody who reloads without coming across Varget. So I was able to kind of clone that round with Varget and the 69 grain Sierra Match King. And I was able to dial it in. I mean, I had a good starting point because I was cloning it. I was using the same bullets, so I used the same overall length, same comparator length. And it just was a really good way to kind of get into something that I knew would work and something that I knew what the components were pretty much. And I knew I couldn't go wrong because, like I said, I wasn't at the time into reloading for rifles. So that kind of was my original goal. Was I wanted to clone something that I could benchmark my loads against the clone in a true apples to apples scenario, and I wanted to be around that 3/4 MOA. So I did that, and it worked, and I was able to actually, over time develop some techniques and, do some more research and basically improve that slightly. So that's kind of how I first got into it, and what my initial goals were, and what I was doing with the rifle. So I really liked the idea of taking something that I knew I knew I could get there, and I knew just briefly looking online that everybody uses Varget, everybody uses the 69 grain Sierra Match Kings. I mean, it's just a golden standard. And then so I started thinking about it. Well, I have a Savage Model 10 that eventually I'd like to reload for. It's in 308. So I said, well, at least if I use Varget, I can continue using that same Varget for a 308 as well. And another thing I like about it is, Varget's got the extreme line from Hodgdon, right? And it's the temperature insensitive, or as close as you can get, of course. One thing too is that the Hodgdon powders are actually made by the same company who made the Outback ammunition, right? So, or under the same umbrella anyway. So that's why they kind of pointed me in that direction of that line of Hodgdon powders and said, yeah, we use something in that range, right? So, makes sense that they would use their own stuff. They didn't tell me exactly what they used, but I was able to get very close, right? So then moving on from there, the other thing too is I was able to get the cost per box from, even if the ammo had been available, down from, I believe it was, around $13 a box, $13 a box of 20. And through my reloads, just buying everything retail, nothing in bulk, I was able to get it, I think around $7 a box, which you can't beat, minute MOA ammunition for $7 a box. You can't do it. Now, is the ROI there? Absolutely, but it depends on how much you shoot and how what kind of volume you're shooting in. So if you're dumping a couple hundred rounds a week, then yeah, your ROI is going to be pretty fast, your return on investment. If you're only shooting a box or two a month, well, then the ROI of buying all the equipment, investing in learning how to do it, and all of that, it's just never going to be there. So if you shoot often enough that the ROI will be a savings to you, then think about it that way. But as you know, I really don't encourage people to get into reloading purely to save money. If that's your reason, you can certainly do that. But you should really, it really, again, it depends on your goals. If your goal is precision ammunition, you may never recoup it. But if your goal is, just bulk plinking ammo, you can absolutely, save some money there as well. So it just depends what you're doing. I mean, maybe if you're doing a lot of, PRS shoots or matches or 3-gun or something, then yeah, you're going to make your money back much faster, reloading. But again, you have a big time investment as well. So there's always a trade-off. You can pay more for the convenience. So then moving on from there, I started experimenting with different brands of brass, with Lake City, with Norma. Now, again, when I used the Norma, I kind of stumbled upon it by accident. Well, I was buying the Norma TAC 55 grain factory ammunition to shoot out of my some of my other M4 style rifles, and it's phenomenal stuff. But I started having all this brass left over from it, and I started loading it for the precision ammunition and realized that, wow, this brass is really good. So I don't know, there's some conspiracy theories online about whether it's the same quality as the unfired Norma brass that you'll get, from a store. I don't know, because I've not done the unfired brass, but using the Norma TAC 55 grain once fired brass from my own rifles, that stuff was phenomenal. So I tried Lake City. I tried a few different of the more well-known brands. And so anyways, I've said all that to say that where I'm at right now is I'm carrying that goal of better than 3/4 MOA for mid-range. My ranges that I can get to easily, the longest is 350 yards. So that's what I'm kind of shooting for, is a 3/4 MOA or better at 350 yards, which is not asking a lot, really. And so that's where I'm at. So my latest project that I'm kind of documenting here for video is I purchased some Lapua 223 Remington, and this it's always been kind of touted as the best that there is, and I definitely am a huge believer in brass and brass prep as being the keys to accuracy, based on my testing with the other some of the other brands, using mixed brass versus 223 and 5.56, and you can watch hours and hours of video on which brand is better, is 5.56 better, is 223 better. But again, it all depends on what your goals are. And again, if you're just going after just some plinking rounds, nothing wrong with that. But that's your goal. You could probably get away with some mixed brass, but you don't want to be on the hot side. You don't want to be playing with those pressures. But that's not the scope of what we're talking about today. So I'll have a few more videos about the process of kind of experimenting, because one of the things that I was running into, and the reason why I was wanting to make the switch from the Norma brass, was that the Norma brass is very thick. Now, it's quality stuff, and there's nothing wrong with it being thick, except for the little bit of loss of case capacity. So I was not able to get the velocities that I was trying to get to with the 69 grain Sierra Match Kings into a Norma case, just because of the case capacity. Now, it's extremely consistent stuff. It's really, really good quality brass, but it doesn't have a lot of case capacity, and Varget is a very large granule extruded powder, so you're filling it up quite quickly. Now, in all the books, and I have all of them, they all say that there's nothing wrong with going a little bit compressed, and most of the guys that shoot the 77 grains, or anything more than the 69 grains, pretty much always have compressed loads. So if you're Googling on the forums or whatever, and you see a recipe for Varget and either a 69 grain or better bullet, you're going to see compression loads. So be very careful about just Googling one and taking it and running with it, right? Check your sources, check your load manuals, check your pressures, and listen for that crunch. Okay. So as you're loading, you are able to hear once you go compression, because it starts actually crunching the bullet down onto the powder and crunching it down in the case. So I've done a few other things, like, if you settle the powder a little bit, you can get a little bit more capacity. But again, when you're compressing, you're starting to play with pressure. So again, that was really the reason for doing the swap to Lapua brass. It's much more expensive. So I'm trying to make this brass last, compared to a range pickup or something that might be free. I think the 100 cases of this is like right around $60. So I mean, it's not crazy expensive, but compared to free, it is. So anyways, that's the goal, is to try to meet or beat that accuracy, but at a higher velocity, so I can push out the distances a little bit. There are ranges in the area that I can reach out past 350, and I plan on doing that once I have a load that I'm confident can do that in. Now, and on my Varget loads that are the clone of the Outback, they're very accurate loads, and like I said, they work great. But I'm experimenting with the Lapua brass, and the other thing is changing up the powders just slightly to the Hodgson H 4895, which is still a thick, or not thick, but a bigger granule, just like Varget. I mean, if you put them both next to each other, it'd be very tough to tell the difference. Again, it's a very common powder. It's in the extreme line, so it's not it's not that temperature sensitive compared to some powders. A very well-known established powder, and it can also be used for 308, just like Varget. It's very similar, but excuse me, it actually does get you a little bit more velocity than Varget does, and but other than that, it's pretty much the same. I mean, meter's the same. Everything else about it is pretty much the same as Varget, except for you do get a little bit more velocity out of it. So that's kind of my goal. I plan on doing some workups, and I'll have some videos on that as time permits. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.